People are saying life's not fair. I'm not doing well. My son's still living in the basement. I can't seem to get a job.
I don't believe that. They voted for a crook.
And there is a huge element, to be honest, of anti-blackness in a lot of this. Anti-black Americanness specifically.
Agitation of three trends that have been very deeply embedded in American history: misogyny, racism, and xenophobia.
All right, so by now, you probably have heard some of the most craziest reasons on why the Democratic Party lost this election by a landslide. But I think I found probably the most unhinged take. Yes, one that supersedes Joy Reid and the evil women from The View. This is from a Princeton University professor that goes by the name of Eddie Claude Jr. I can't make sense of it. Maybe you can. Let's go ahead and listen to it. Watch.
There's this sense, right, that whiteness, right, is under threat. The demographic shifts. The country isn't what all of these racially ambiguous children on Cheerios commercials are confusing the hell out of me. Right?
Eddie, a lot of people voted because their life's too damn expensive, and it was here, and it
they
was
voted for. You're telling me, Stephanie, that all of these people who believe that their lives are, that bread is too high and eggs are too high, that they voted for a convicted felon, a guy who said we can grab the peak.
All right, so before we go any further, this is why college is a scam. You have professors who truly believe in this stuff, and they'll go to the ends of the earth to defend it. It's not rooted in any reality. Even if what he says is true, it wasn't the main reason on why she lost this election. But the fact that that's what he is saying tells you his state of mind. Now, as someone who is a professor, you'd think instead of providing baseless opinions about what happened in this election, that he would connect it to some type of data point or statistics or study that was peer reviewed. But no, they don't do that these days. One could argue that the people on the legacy media, the pundits, the commentators, and these university professors, they all have one thing in common. They're more involved in activism than in actually reporting the truth.
I think that a lot
They
of
voted for this guy.
I'm not defending it, but I think there are tons of people that don't pay attention to, and I'm not defending it, don't pay attention to politics at all. But while we live in the most prosperous country in the world, people are saying life's not fair. I'm not doing well. My son's still living in the basement. I can't seem to get a job. I don't like the status quo. I'm voting for something else. And he was the person.
I love you to life.
I love you.
But I do not believe that. I cannot believe that. And the reason I think you believe it is because you don't want to believe that that's what's really motivating them. It's always the case. People don't want to believe what the country actually is, because if they believe it, they're going to have to confront what's in them. I don't believe that. They voted for a crook, a person who they know is stealing from, just doing everything to undermine the so-called country that they love. And then they're telling us the BS that it's economics. We know that's not true.
To disregard exactly what the voters say just proves that you are out of touch. The fact that you don't even acknowledge what their pain is, what their plight is in regards to why they voted the way that they did, he can't believe. See, this is a mental crisis in our country. In his belief system, in his mind, he has already made the decision that he will not believe in another point of view around this issue. He has no ability to think critically about this issue, which leads me to number 3. That is what's absent in politics today, especially in the Democratic Party. They have replaced critical thinking and common sense with identity politics, and it has done what? It has blown up in their faces. And when you have Stephanie Ruhle looking at you crazy about what you're saying, I think you're going in the wrong direction. No question. All right, so maybe what he should be doing is consulting with staffers who worked for the Kamala Harris campaign and what their reasoning was on why she lost. Listen to this.
As someone who was working for the Democratic campaign in Pennsylvania, a battleground state that was key to this election that we lost, I want to give you my experience and why I wasn't shocked or surprised when Donald Trump won the election. As a Pennsylvania native from York County, Pennsylvania, a red county that has historically been red, I knew that when I was coming into this campaign, I wanted to center voices that were in central PA and in the parts of PA that Democrats don't usually go to that are going to impact this election in a huge way. Though I quickly found out that this was not what we were going to do in any capacity. As a matter of fact, many of the people making the big decisions on where we would go or what we would do politically were not even from Pennsylvania and had no idea what Pennsylvanians want or desire. One common theme a lot of the people of color on this campaign experienced was that whenever they actually had concerns or elevated microaggressions or weren't feeling heard and they tried to elevate these, they were pushed to the side, brushed to the side, not listened to, not taken seriously. And we see what the results of that have been. Now, this is no surprise. This is what the Democratic Party has always been. However, it is shocking and highly irresponsible to be putting people in positions of power that act this way on a campaign for a black woman. It makes no sense to me. And as a direct result of my experience on this campaign, I feel the need to remind white people that even if you are queer or neurodivergent and you identify with a minority group, that does not exclude you from acts of racism, from doing microaggressions, from centering yourself in conversations where you don't need to be centered.
All right, so clearly he, went off the rails there towards the end. But he did bring up a point that I wanted to address to you, and maybe that Princeton University professor, Eddie Claude Jr., should listen to this guy. See, she didn't lose because there's some anti-blackness movement or the absence of black or the absence of white children in Cheerios or whatever cockeyed, mimied idea that he has come up with. The reason why the Democratic Party has lost this time around is because they think they know better than everybody else. And the problem is they don't even know who they're talking to anymore. They used to be a party that is great at selling. At this point, they don't even know who they're selling to. And even if they argue that, no, DeVore, we do know who we're selling to, then why are they not voting for you then? So we know that this wokeness has infected professors all around the nation. And it's also infected psychiatrists, children psychiatrists. Listen to this clip.
Are people challenged with the idea of how do you interact with people who you know voted for this? Right? If you are an LGBTQ person and you know someone in your family voted essentially against your rights, or you're a woman knowing that, this man was calling people the B word, J.D. Vance was literally calling Kamala Harris the trash and said, we're going to take out the trash. I know a lot of black women were incredibly triggered by that. And if you then meet somebody and they voted for the people who called you trash, or if you're Puerto Rican, and someone voted that way, do you recommend, just from a psychological standpoint, being around them? We got the holidays coming up.
So I love that you asked this question because, there is a push, I think just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely not. So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why, to say, I have a problem with the way that you voted because it went against my very livelihood and I'm not going to be around you this holiday. I need to take some space for me.
Now, this psychiatrist is from Yale University. So we got Princeton and Yale on the board delivering unhinged takes. And these are people of color, if I'm using their language. So number one, clearly, if you're walking around in your life with a terrible attitude towards people that love you, what do you expect to get back? It doesn't make any sense. What she is recommending people to do is to be negative, but expect the outcomes to change. That is called insanity, which is a fundamental thing when it comes to mindset, right? If my perception is filtered through a negative point of view or a negative belief system that is comprised of limiting beliefs, like a limiting belief here would be, I can't get along with my family because they voted for Trump. It is limiting your ability to live a prosperous life. They're doing more damage to this generation than good.
Need to establish boundaries. And if you feel like you need to establish boundaries with people, whether they're your family or not, I think you should very much be entitled to do so. And I think it may be essential for your mental health.
If you're going into the house with bad faith, already upset, already angry, ready to fight your family over the election, then you're part of the problem, not the solution. But I don't believe the Democratic Party wants to be a part of the solution. I think they are addicted to being part of the problem because you have congressmen or congresswomen in this scenario who are addicted to this state of mind of blaming everything on racism, And so here we are with Maxine Waters going on News Nation, showing us why they're so toxic with their mindset.
What is the lesson that your party should have learned?
Well, the Democratic Party worked very hard, and they raised, substantial sum of money. We had great candidates, and so Trump had a following, basically generally led by whites. White males voted in big numbers. He had a few from the other race groups that joined in, like the Latinos at 45%, and black men at about the same rate that they did when they voted for him before, at about 20%. That combination won. And so it is not that Democrats did not work hard, did not do a great job. We had an unusual situation where we had a black woman, which this country has never seen before. A combination of all of those things led to his win.
All right, so before I rip into Maxine Waters, do us a favor, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. If you want to support us further, go to the link in the description below and grab something from our merch store, or you can buy us a cup of coffee. Now, people like her do not belong in government, okay? Because they are a disease at this point. And for a party who prides themselves on trying to be the party of democracy or the party of unity and the party of being inclusive, they have a funny way of showing it with the way that they speak. It isn't about the fact that white people have been in charge. It's the fact that you guys keep programming your party and your audience and citizens to be victims. And when you think from a victim mentality, you know what you get in return? Victim results.
And there is a huge element, to be honest, of anti-blackness in a lot of this, anti-black Americanness specifically. And Paola and I have talked about this, that there is a part of that anti-blackness is a piece of it, even though Enrique Tarrio, who's the head of the Proud Boys, is a black Latino, but he's down with white supremacists. Down with them. And there's this idea that I'm black, but I'm not black. I may look black to you. I may be black if I'm walking through Bloomingdale's and get followed around. But in my mind, I'm identifying with whiteness because whiteness means privilege and it means not being a black American.
All right. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Activism has clearly taken over the legacy media. Now, what MSNBC has going on over there is absolutely far left propaganda. Most of the stuff is not rooted in reality, but the reality that they operate from does not line up with the reality of people who voted in this election, even people from their own party. Now let's go back to the claim that she made that there's anti-blackness with what happened in this election. Clearly, you guys know that I'm black. My mother and father are both black, okay? I can confirm to you by living in California and in Houston, Texas, that my life has not been dominated by racism. Have I come across people who clearly hated me, maybe not for the color of my skin, but maybe because they had hate in their heart for whatever reason? Yes, I have. But does that tell me as a black person that this country is racist? No, it does not. It just shows me that there are people in this country who clearly have something going on up here and definitely in here. That's got nothing to do with me.
Let's be honest about this, okay? Let's be absolutely blunt about it. There were appeals to racism in this campaign, and there is racial bias in this country, and there is sexism in this country. And anybody who thinks that that did not in any way impact on the outcome of this race is wrong.
Okay, now I saved the best for last, because if you followed me during election night, I went over the 13 keys by Alan Lichtman, who also is a professor who claims that his 13 keys have predicted every single election correctly. And the only reason why I'm making room for him in this video, because he is spewing the same rhetoric that we are talking about in this video. Yes, this is what he has succumbed to. Instead of admitting that he's just wrong in how he perceived his 13 keys, he went the lazy route and blamed it on sexism, racism, and misogyny. Watch this madness.
Because the keys depend upon a rational, pragmatic electorate deciding based on governance whether the incumbent party should get 4 more years. And we've seen the explosion of some trends that have existed before, but not to this extent. Disinformation. You know, Elon Musk I don't know how many hundreds of billions he has. He has been the director of misinformation. 2 billion views of his spreading of disinformation, not just about the economy, but about immigrants, about minorities. We've never seen disinformation at this scale. Next, we have never seen to this scale the agitation of 3 trends that have been very deeply embedded in American history: misogyny, racism, and xenophobia.
Let me remind you guys, these are the individuals that are teaching the new generation. What data point does he have to support the statement that it was sexism, racism, and misogyny? None. This is their opinion. This is part of their belief system. This is the way that they see the world. But again, it's not the actual world we live in. It's the world that they have chosen to live in. And anything that counters that, what do they call it? Disinformation, misinformation. And just maybe he's doing this because he has a fatal case of Trump derangement syndrome, where I believe all common sense is lost. And if he truly cared about his name, his legacy, and his 13 keys, he would have given a neutral, impartial take on why they failed, and he didn't do it. He gave a biased take. All right, so first it was white women's fault. Then it was Latino men's fault. Now it's just America is racist, sexist, and misogynistic. Okay, if that is the game that the Democrats are going to choose to play, these leftists, these liberals, these professors, these psychiatrists, if that is what they're going to do, they are digging themselves a hole that they can't come back from. And what's interesting is history repeats itself. Liberalism is not something that should be dominating America. It does not work. But listen, I'm just a guy on YouTube. I didn't go to Princeton. I didn't go to Yale. I didn't create the 13 keys. I'm not a congressman, right? I'm not a psychiatrist. But for some reason, I have common sense. And maybe that really matters in the end. That's my opinion. So what do you guys think about these unhinged takes? I didn't know it was going to get even crazier. I mean, I'm shocked by what some of these people had to say in this video today. How about you? Are you shocked? What do you think about Alan Lichtman's 13 keys failing? I'd like to really get your take on that. Maxine Waters, I'm assuming I know how you feel about that, but tell me anyway. And then the professor from Princeton and the psychiatrist from Yale. I mean, what do you make of that, of what they were saying? Put all your comments, your answers, and your questions in the comment section below. Now, these people aren't the only one with unhinged takes. You guys know that. For some reason, CNN thought it was a great idea to have a comedian on who has a serious case of Trump derangement syndrome, who pretty much emotionally collapsed live on air when he experienced an epic beatdown from Scott Jennings, who is one of the only common sense conservatives on CNN besides Show Michael Singleton. But if you want to check out that video, because we did drop it recently, you can click on it because it's coming up right now.